spoke here last week? Wait. I don't play second fiddle to anybody. Who is it that shared last week, Teresa? I don't. Yeah,
It
I
was
didn't get.
Ralph. I think it was
I,
Ralph. Wasn't it Ralph?
I I did not get the memo. I do not.
But he stayed the whole time, including the Q&A.
Oh, see. Ah, see, see. Oh, we going there this evening. I can see where you guys get ready for Mr. Toad's wild ride, okay? Because I don't know where we going this evening. I am so grateful to be here. First of all, I want to apologize to the group before I get into all the stuff. When Ali asked me to share with you guys, I let him know I have a regular a workshop that I facilitate on Tuesday nights. It's 6 o'clock Los Angeles time. That's going to be in about 50 minutes from now. And I'm the facilitator. So there's no workshop if I don't show up. It's not one of those things I can take a week off. So I shared that with Ali, and he said, "Oh, we'll work around that. All you have to do is just come, share for 40 minutes. I'll explain to everybody that you have to get out of here." Naturally, he's not here tonight. Naturally, but I want to let you guys know because I've shared at this meeting. This is a special meeting.
Yes.
This series is special to me. I've spoken
Thank
at
you.
it before. I've come to hear people share at it before. So I only told you that not just to make it, but to let you know I truly respect this meeting and everything in it. And if I could possibly stay for the entire hour and a half, it would be. In fact, and those of you who know me know I like to talk. So I want the whole hour and a half. I don't want just 40 minutes and get out of here. I like to be here for the Q&A and all of that because I like to hear from you guys as well. So I feel like I'm missing out on something by not being able to do it. But I'm gonna do what we do in Alcoholics Anonymous. I answered the call because this is the fellowship that saved me. And so anytime I can give any of myself for the purpose of enriching anybody's spiritual growth, and that's mine included, that's why I'm here. In fact, if nobody else gets anything out of this, I know I will, because for this next 45 minutes or so that I'm able to stay here and be here, I am staying sober and I am depositing something into the spiritual bank that you guys told me I might have to make some withdrawals from one day. And that has been my story. In fact, that's one of the reasons I selected this particular reading. Before I share, I want to read the paragraph that I took this from because just that line, I couldn't have Ali post the whole thing. So I want to read the paragraph, if I could, to you to give it some context and let you know what I'm going to be sharing about this evening. And it actually starts on page 104 of the 12 and 12. And this is how it reads. We discover that we do receive guidance for our lives to just about the extent that we stop making demands upon God to give it to us on order and on our terms. Almost any experienced AA will tell how his affairs have taken remarkable and unexpected turns for the better as he tried to improve his conscious contact with God. He will also report that out of every season of grief or suffering, when the hand of God seemed heavy or even unjust, new lessons for living were learned. New resources of courage were uncovered, and that finally, inescapably, the conviction came that God does move in a mysterious way, his wonders to perform. So I love that paragraph out of the 12 and 12. I love that it informs me about a lot of the way that I've lived over the course of my sobriety. Let me tell you my sobriety date. It's July the 14th of 1986. I have a home group. It's called the Never Too Early Big Book Workshop. We meet every Sunday morning, 9:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time to 11 a.m. We've been meeting continuously since November of 1987. I have a sponsor. His name is Jerome Scott. and I am a dedicated member of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's probably the most important thing that I could report to you guys this evening is that fact that I am a dedicated, proud member of the fellowship that literally has given me everything. And so with that, I'm going to launch off, and I'm not going to assume that out of these 195 people, I guess it's 194, including me, that you guys know me. So I like to share just a little snippet of what I used to be like, because I think that it's important to qualify in meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, because we got our girl Allison here who did a phenomenal thing, who came directly out of treatment. She's in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is phenomenal, right? I loved her reading of the spiritual experience. I heard the emotion, you know, and I felt that, and so I'm just so happy that she's here. But she might be thinking, well, this guy, I might not be like this guy. He must be somebody, that's special, that's important. Look, they ask him to speak and all this other kind of stuff. I can't, and I know what it feels like when you're new and you're looking at all of us. Best believe, Allison, when I first got to Alcoholics Anonymous, wasn't nobody asking me to speak. It wasn't, there wasn't any, mainly because, something, I understand, man, that this thing, this disease that had me in its grips, this disease that when I arrived here had literally drained me of life, that had taken every moral and every value that I had been raised with, because I was raised with a lot of morals and a lot of values. It had taken all of them from me. And I was an animal, a savage out there on the streets. Because what alcohol did to me, Allison, could not be reported to anybody other than another alcoholic. Still, those are the people that truly understood exactly what I was talking about when I came to the room. And I told them about those despicable, those those unforgivable. I thought. I thought they were unforgivable. I learned later that they weren't. I- And that the things that I had done that were unspeakable, I could speak them in Alcoholics Anonymous. The things that had happened to me. There's something about the magic of this fellowship. There's a line in the a big. I'm a jump around, y'all, because that's what I'm sorry. They know who they asked to speak. Um, and so in our book Alcoholics Anonymous, in the chapter called "There Is a Solution," there is a line. There's a paragraph that first describes how prior to Alcoholics Anonymous, um, chronic alcoholics, were unable to find help because the people you would normally turn to help with, the psychiatrists, the wives, the intimate friends, the parents, we didn't feel like we could be completely open and honest with them, because the things that we do, how can you share that with somebody else? How would they understand? But then they have a line in that chapter that says, but the ex problem drinker who has found this solution, who is properly armed with facts, not about the book, but properly armed with facts about himself, can generally win the entire confidence of another alcoholic in a matter of hours. And while I cannot, Allison, while I cannot prove it, I will posit a theory to you. If I were to be able to sit down with you, we go somewhere to the park, or we go to a quiet place, to a library, we go somewhere where we could just sit and we could just talk for a couple of hours. I believe that I could share enough about myself that will have you telling me, feeling comfortable enough to share with me things about yourself that you have heretofore been unable to share with anybody else. That's why it happens. The book says, until this is accomplished, little or not until this happens, little or nothing can be accomplished. Until I can find somebody that I can trust, that I can share with, right? I know that I have since had the opportunity in coming to Alcoholics Anonymous and being rescued by the fellowship long enough for me to get into the book Alcoholics Anonymous, where I learned the recovery, the second legacy of this program, right? And then I was able to turn to service, the third leg. And I've been able to stay here because I've had that awakening of my spirit. I'm the guy who started off as a nerd early in life, not drinking until after I graduated from high school, not believing that I was worthy enough of the things that I had accomplished, not really thinking that they had the same value as the things others had accomplished, coming through life looking at the things I didn't have rather than the things that I did. Somebody in here knows what I'm talking about. Always feeling lack, never feeling there was enough, always feeling dis-ease and discomfort internally. It's the story of my life. And I'm not the kind of person that can say I never believed in God because I was always aware of the presence, or at least the existence of God. I won't talk about the presence, but the existence of God. I was raised in church, right? I know this isn't everybody's experience, but I know they asked me here to share my experience. So I'm going to do that, right? Rick Ross, Rick Rowe. And so um, I'm raised in a Baptist church, and my mother raised me and my brothers, five of us, five brothers, I should say, six boys. And we were raised in church by my mom, single mom, putting my daddy out of the house when I was about 8 years old because of his drunkenness, his irresponsibility. And so we leaned on the church. My mother really dedicated her life to going to church, except I need to let you know I had resentments against her because of church. And the resentments came because my mother believed in tithing. My mother believed that, and we were poor. And my mother was giving her money to the church. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm selfish and self-centered even back then. And I'm thinking, why are you giving them what we should have? Right. And I hated when my mother would say things like, gotta find a way. Right, Calvin? She always say that. Gotta find a way. And I was like, man, that's you getting up early in the morning, going and cooking and cleaning for other people's families to feed us. That's you going to night school to get your high school diploma. I didn't see God in there. I had no idea that my mother was fueled by a power. See, I didn't know that. I didn't know that my mother was plugged into the power. I separated that because I didn't see it the same way my mother did. Um, and so I go through life being book smart, but that's all, y'all. I was academically accomplished, except I was internally empty, barren, because I didn't know what to believe in. I used to believe in Superman and Batman comic books. I used to believe in Perry Mason television. I used to believe because I had to fantasize because I was this poor kid growing up in South Central Los Angeles with nothing. And so I would always fantasize about being somebody else, somebody who was much more important than me, somebody who was much more handsome than me, somebody who was so much. Kuna, how could a guy as handsome as me ever think that he was ugly? Right? I, I'm stunned by that, right? But that's my story, right? I I just could not believe um somebody in here knows what I'm talking about feeling so uh, disconnected, so disconnected as I grew up that I always felt like I was not enough. And by the same token, also thinking because of my ego, thinking I'm better than, I should be better than this, right? I said, look at him. Why does he have so much? I'm smart. And, at the same time that I envy, I also look down on. It's crazy kind of thinking, right? So I come through life thinking like that, coming through school. Finally, after high school, I start to drink. And the reason I start to drink is because I'm socially awkward. I don't know how to talk to girls. I don't know how to interact. I don't know how to do anything like that. So I drink so that I can be courageous enough to ask you to dance. That's all, right? And Calvin, when I started to drink, man, I need to let you know, man, that those fears slipped away. That I felt like, y'all know about those promises they read after the ninth step. When I started to drink, I felt the promises. I felt like I had a new freedom and a new happiness, Mickey. right? I felt like that didn't have to regret the past nor shut the door on it, right? When I drank, it provided me with the thing that I needed, the spiritual energy that I needed to fuel my life. Unfortunately, however, like Bill W. says in Bill's story in the book, uh, the weapon that I forged out of drinking and thinking would later turn around like a boomerang and tear me to shreds because I'm an alcoholic. So what that means for me, just so anybody knows, I'm not an alcoholic because I'm black or because I'm poor, I was poor, or because I grew up in South Central, or because my daddy wasn't in the house. I'm an alcoholic because I am bodily and mentally different from my fellows. That because when I drank, I acquired this thing, this allergy to alcohol, this craving that when I drank, I lost control. I lost the ability to control the amounts that I drank. And once I acquired it, it was there and it wasn't going to go nowhere. That I couldn't get rid of it, you know. And who, I didn't think that was a bad thing. I just thought my tolerance was high. I just thought that everybody else, they were just punks and stuff. They just didn't know how to do it, right? And so I'm out of control. But then this is the second feature of my disease that makes me an alcoholic. That once having crossed this line and things start to happen to me, where I start to say, maybe I don't need to be doing this anymore. I can't stop. That I might be able to stop for periods of time, but never completely. And my brain won't accept that my body can't do it. And I have no control over the amounts that I take, and I have no control over when or if or how I'm going to do it. I always go back to it. So that even though because I'm a late starter, I was able to accomplish some things in life. I graduated from college in 4 years. I graduated from law school in 2.5 years. I passed the state bar exam to become an attorney here in California the first time. 5 years later, I'm homeless. Now, I'm not on the street, y'all. I'm living at my mother's house. See, I used to say I was never homeless. It wasn't my home. I was grown, living at my mama's house, sleeping on her floor. And oh, by the way, those five brothers of mine that went to church with me and all that, they drink like I do. And so they were back at mama's house too. So imagine six grown men, right, practicing this disease that I suffer from. We almost killed my mother, that spiritual woman that I told you about, that woman that leaned on God. I understand now. I used to think to myself, if mama was so good, why would God visit her with six beasts like this? Why would God ever let this woman, this good woman, go through the things that she had to go through, Lars? Why? And what I understood now, man, is God equipped my mother to be able to handle that. God fitted my mother for the ability to endure and sustain through all that and be a role model for us in spite of all the things that we did to her. My mother is 92 years old now. My mother almost died in 1985 from she had a nervous breakdown. She almost died from the stress that her sons were putting on her mind and spirit. And as a direct result of Alcoholics Anonymous and four of her sons being able to get sober in the rooms, and the other two are cool now. It seems like us four were dragging those two down. So now mama's cool. Mama's cool because you guys rescued us. Now, about this passage that I read in the book, uh, I, the steps are in order for a particular reason. And I understand that step 11, which says, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. So that's a lot. That's a mouthful, right? And so I understand that I need to seek, once having gone through the first 10 steps, once having cleaned these insides out, once having gone out and started to make amends once having started to do all those things, Allison, I'm talking to you again. Allison, what I've learned since I have been sober, that the worst things that have happened to me have ended up being the best things that have happened to me. That in the darkness, how could I possibly think that the fact that I lost everything and that I became so bankrupt and so sick from alcoholism, how did I know that it was going to catapult me into a way of living that is better than any I ever imagined? You can look at all these faces in these squares. We got over 200 people here. Best believe when I got grown, I said to myself, Kuna, once I get old enough, I'm never gonna go back to church. I'm that Mama had us in church, not just on Sunday. She had us on Monday. We had to go to Baptist Training Union. We had to go to Bible study. We had to go to choir rehearsal. We were going to church like 4 or 5 days out of the week. I said, if I'm never gonna go to something every day. Are you kidding me? I'm in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous every day, Allison. I just finished saying that I am going to be leaving from this meeting to go into another meeting. But wait, what's wrong with me, right? I've what I learned since I've come here has been that what God's will for me is. And this is what I get through this prayer and this meditation, through seeking this greater understanding of the things that are happening to me. And the reason I need to do that is because of that paragraph I just read. Because there will come a time, Allison, when God's hand will seem unjust, where the hand that you're dealt is going to seem heavy and it's going to seem unjust. And you're going to feel like, why do I need to keep doing this? I thought I was doing this so that things wouldn't happen to me, right? So things would stop happening to me. And the reason that I have found this is discernment. This is what I learned. This is one of those things I found that I need to get sober because things are gonna happen to me. Not to stop things from happening to me, because you guess what? It rains on everybody. My selfishness and my self-centeredness make me think that nothing bad is ever supposed to happen to me. That I'm not supposed to, that if I do the right thing, I'm supposed to get the right results. I think I have a Santa Claus God where as long as I'm nice, I'm not naughty God. Everything I'm supposed to get everything that I want. No, that's not what's supposed to happen. I I get everything I need, but this is the trick. This is the whole deal for me. I talked about it at the beginning of the meeting that every time it seems like I've been dealt the worst hand, in hindsight, in retrospect, because I stay. See, the only time you can get perspective, the only time I can reflect is if I stay. See, if I don't stay, I'll never have that opportunity to reflect and look back on what has happened to me. Allison, I've stayed. I've stayed through the tough times, through the hard times. That I told you I passed the bar that first time, right? Well, let me tell you, because of drinking and using, I lost the ability to practice law. When I got sober, I got it back, and I was able to practice law for 28 years sober, from 1988 to 2014, 26 years. I was able to practice law, having Perry Mason moments in court, going to the White House in Washington, D.C., because I was invited there to give input on a federal crime bill that was being put together because they heard about the work I did in my community. I think I'm rolling, I'm representing all kind of folks. And Allison, life is grand until in 2014, I'm sitting in the parking lot of my law office contemplating suicide. 28 years sober at the time. 28 years sober, and I'm thinking of killing myself because I'm reading a letter from the state bar telling me of their intent to disbar me. Right now, they're saying they're going to disbar me because I've I've not done my job. I'm supposed to be watching over a guy who has a business that he embezzled one of the clients' money, $1 million. And I had the responsibility, the fiduciary duty of watching over the business. And I did. I trusted him and I got lazy and I didn't do my job. And as a consequence, I'm losing my license and I'm embarrassed and I'm ashamed and I feel guilt like nobody's business. And I got used to people in Alcoholics Anonymous looking at me with pride, with uh, with we're so proud of you, Ronald. We're so glad that you got your and the very thing that we come here to be rid of, ego and pride, unfortunately, we kind of reacquire it as the result of the love given to us by the people in the room. And I am now so concerned with what you think about me because I I I love y'all. I love y'all so much that I care deeply about what you think about me. In fact, I cared so deeply about it, Becca, that I was sitting in that parking lot thinking about killing myself. And why would I ever think that people in Alcoholics Anonymous would abandon me, would look at me any less because of the things that I done? It's all my own thinking. And so I know that this step we're talking about right now, this 11th step, if my if my belief had not been deep enough and strong enough, because it is only by God's grace that I made it home. It's not by my doing, because in and of myself, I can't face that. By myself, I am unable to face the adversities that are doled out to me like that. And somehow I made it home. And my wife, who's a soldier, my wife, who I was so afraid would be angry at me and would say, "How could you?" My wife embraced me, and my wife said, "Honey, we're going to be okay." See, that's God, Allison. That's God. See, and my mother, who I did not want to disappoint, because I hadn't made my mother cry for 28 years, and when at least not unhappy tears. And when I told my mother about it, and my mother did cry. My mother asked me if she don't know what's going to happen, and I said, "I'm going to be okay, Mom." And God was in the midst. I called a good friend of mine in Alcoholics Anonymous, a lady by the name of Polly Pistol, my big sister, because I didn't want her to hear about it. And I needed to talk to somebody in the fellowship. And I called her up and she says, "Ronnie, you're going to be okay." Said, mind you, there will maybe some people in Alcoholics Anonymous who going to talk about it. Talk about, look at him. He talks spiritual. Look at him. He going around talking out. Right. There will be some people because we're human. And there's going to be some, but she said, but guess what? Anybody who matters are going to still love you just like I do. I called my brother Ralph, who was traveling as usual to speak somewhere. He said, because I wanted to know, I brought shame on my family name. I care about that. I care about those kinds of things now that I'm sober, right? And he said, "Ronnie, it's going to be okay, right?" You know. And I need to let you know that it was a dark 2 years for me. But looking back on it, I can't tell you that I've ever been closer to God during those 2 years that I did not work. That when I saw the way that my family, my wife, my children rallied around me, that when I saw the way that my sponsees, we lost our house. We lost everything material that we had. my sponsees and other members of the fellowship, they got trucks and stuff. They came to our house and they helped us move to another house that we had found to rent. And it was hard. We almost couldn't make our rent a few months and stuff. And people stepped up and they helped us. Those were dark days for me. But in hindsight, in retrospect, my wife and I grew closer during that time period than we had been in years. Through every dark time that it seems that when the hand of God is seen unjust, where there's been grief and sorrow, I can look back and reflect on it, and it's always been the best thing that could have happened. See, I haven't really. A lot of times I don't get an opportunity to share, like in detail, some of these things that because man, it was tough. We had to start shopping at the Dollar Tree, right? We had to start. We could no longer go to a lot of the stores that we went to. We started going doing stuff, right? And it was a trip, man, Mickey. I need to tell you, man, it was so humbling, just what a guy like me needs, right? Just like, see, and I don't. I, the one thing that I share a lot of times with the people that I sponsor is having experience is the best thing. Having experience is the best thing. Getting experience is a bitch. you know, when you have it, that's cool. I'm sitting here right now talking about it. Oh yeah, I went through. It wasn't feeling that good when I was going through it. That when I was going through it, man, it's tough. It's tough. And living out loud. I thank God for having trained feet in Alcoholics Anonymous, because I remember they used to tell me, Ronnie, when you looking bad is when you looking good. When you looking bad, because show up anyway. Show up, right? They used to tell me, when your ass is falling off, just put some suspenders on it and just drag it behind you, right? And it felt like a lot of times was exactly what was happening to me. And as I'm traveling through having this experience, and clients that I had that had paid me for cases and stuff are now, wondering, where's my money, right? Where's the and just the constantly being visited by this guilt and this shame, and constantly being I thank God for this step. I thank God for the foundation that I learned in Alcoholics Anonymous. Because Michelle, there were many times, man, when I sat alone and I cried. There were many times when it felt like I didn't want to get up, that I didn't want to come face people. But guess what? Being a committed member of Alcoholics Anonymous means you show up anyway. And I have trained feet. So I showed up anyway. In spite of everything that I felt and everything that I thought, and my head just continuing to beat me up, man, I walked through it. And I'm wondering, I'm 60 years old at the time. I was 60 years old. And I'm wondering, how can I recreate my life now? Who's going to want to hire some 60-year-old dude to do something that he's neither trained nor qualified to do? All I've ever done is practice law. And this disbarment makes me unable to practice law in any way. What am I going to do, Jackie? Right? And at the end of that 2-year dry period, a member approached me and he says, guess what, Ron? He says, I work for a company that's starting up this thing called a sobering center located on Skid Row in downtown Los Angeles. That's where I got sober, on Skid Row. And they said, what we're trying to do is we're trying to help the homeless be exposed to recovery, to inspire them to try to seek treatment. We think you might be good to come work with us. I said, well, I don't have no license. And they said, look, your sobriety is your experience. And for the next 5 years, I got an opportunity to make beds, make meals, take infirmed, disabled alcoholics and walk into a shower with them, wash their backs and wash their feet. And I grew as a direct result of that. If I kept that license, I never would have been doing that, right? If I kept that law license, it's no telling. See, I don't even like to play the guessing game because what is what is. I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing right now. 2 years before I lost my law license, I was sitting at lunch with my wife uh, in Florida. We were at a convention in Florida, and we were sitting down with a couple that are friends of ours, and I was sharing about how I was tired of practicing law, and I was tired of uh, being a criminal defense attorney, and that was wearing me down. I was getting burned out, and I was wishing I could do something else. Now, I don't know why God has to be so dramatic, right? And and go ahead and okay, I heard you, Ronald. Right? Because I think it could not have happened any other way. And seeing it's only that kind of insight that I can gain by doing this prayer and meditation so I can connect the dots. Because see, I'm unable to see what mama was saying if I haven't connected the dots. That God to find a way. And all that stuff that mama was telling me, Calvin, all of a sudden I understand. And I find myself sharing with people I sponsor, people I talk to. God will find a way. People who are going through the most adverse situations, that are going through some of the most incredibly difficult times in their lives and stuff. And God will find a way. I like to believe that my story may be a testament to that. That whenever God's hand is feeling heavy or unjust, that he's just working the way to work, he's just waiting to work a miracle for him. That there's always something around the corner that is much better than that which I've ever envisioned. And they told me, God writes straight and crooked lines. Because I think I'm supposed to be going here. And why am I over here? And why am I? And that's exactly where I'm supposed to be. That everything that is happening to me has been exactly what's supposed to happen. And so I hope that what I've been talking about this evening has kind of like touched the topic of what the reading is, because I truly believe that is only by going through all of the steps and continuing to practice this prayer and meditation that I'm able to see the design. I'm starting to be able to understand the music, right? That thing which has brought me here. And I need to let you know, man, that I am blessed. My life has never been better. And I'm not just saying that just because it's a popular thing to say. Right now, I'm almost afraid to say this. Whenever I say this in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, I kind of get, I have more money in the bank than I ever had as a lawyer. I have um, less wrinkles on my face. I've grown my hair. Y'all can't see it. I got this man bun. I, 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 I got younger as time has gone on. And it's only Alcoholics Anonymous and a God of my understanding. So, Allison, welcome to the land of the living. They used to tell me it's the house of miracles. And they said, I'll leave you with this. They said, Ronald, you have just been invited to a banquet of life. And when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, there's this feast that's on this huge table. And at the first station that they have there, they just got these crackers and water. And I am so hungry. and so thirsty when I first get to Alcoholics Anonymous. I eat those crackers and I drink that water, and it that water tastes so good because my throat is so parched because I've been out there on the streets for so long. And those crackers, if you're a guy like me who was 40 or 50 pounds underweight when I got here, them crackers, man, Kuna, I was just right. I was, and it tastes so good. But they told me, but Ronald, you don't have to be satisfied with just crackers and water. Now, if you like that, that's fine. But guess what? We have a feast here. And whatever it is that you like lobster, you like steak, you like sushi, you like pasta, you like whatever it is that you might like, Ronald, we got it here. You want a good family? We have the opportunity here. You want a good relationship with your friends, with your parents? We've got that on the table. You want to have a career? We got that down there. All you need to do is take steps down the table. We got 12 of them. If you take the steps, you will progress down the banquet table of life and you will be fed. I like word pictures and I like that. I like to eat anyway. So when they told me about a feast, I said, yeah, And so uh, with that, I want to thank this group for allowing me to ramble for about 40 minutes or so. I'm gonna stay for 5 minutes and then I'm gonna have to run out to this other meeting. Except I need to let y'all know I love you. I love this fellowship. I love what you've given me, what you've taken away, because what you've left me has been everything that's supposed to be there. Thank you so very much for letting me share.